she came out of the bathroom in our bedroom. We'd been married for like 6 months. And it was at like 10 o'clock at night, and I was just like, I gotta talk to you.
Yeah.
And I just told her everything.
I'm just kind of making this up as we go.
Yeah.
Anything you cool with whatever?
I like these already.
Okay. I'm training for a trail run. So my hips are really sore. I thought doing something with a little rotation would just be kind of a catch-all to stretch.
Right.
Maybe with just a kettlebell in the goblet squat position. Maybe like 7 to 9 reps.
Okay.
Maybe three times through. And we can just do like I'll go, I'll rest, you go, you rest. So it's not
You're gonna get quite a bit of rest on the chin-ups.
so it's not
It's
getting
gonna be a while.
getting out of hand, but that's not gonna bother your
I
form or anything
I
like
don't
that.
think so.
Cool. Awesome. You wanna hop on the bike? We can just warm up for 5 minutes?
Do it. I'm gonna get one more sip of this.
Yeah.
LDU.
I'm gonna take it with me. Do you have these in your
Yeah.
garage?
No, I don't. I had one, and then it weirdly like kind of went kaput. But for all the training for bike stuff that I was doing, I just switched over to a normal like indoor trainer, like a smart trainer. I was
Something
using this.
where you just clip it to your bike?
Yeah.
Like
so,
you put it on the back wheel?
Yeah, I take the back wheel off, and it's a smart trainer. So
I know a little bit about that, but tell me more.
So I use it. So those are you should do those with the apps. So there's a bunch, there's a bunch of different ones. I use one called Trainer Road a lot. It's just like it's an AI generated training plan for intervals, for different tempo stuff that you could do. I use that inside. Outside, I just kind of do whatever. And so when like the interval goes up, the smart trainer will automatically adjust the intensity.
Okay, cool.
So
you don't
instead
have
of
to
me like reaching down and trying to get watts that way, it just
So it's like you're not shifting. You don't have to do any of
Don't do
that.
anything,
It's just that's super cool.
which is good.
And
So
is this one of the ones where it has like you can connect it to a display?
yeah, I got a little TV monitor downstairs, and I think Trainer Road's cool, but it is the most, I think, boring one because it's just a graph. And so there's other ones that like Ruby and Zwift where you can like watch an avatar doing things. Probably more fun, but
Garmin has one, and I think it's a little more interactive than that.
Yeah, you're just staring at a graph. It's kind of like these numbers. It's just you're just watching it do its thing. So.
Do you have something that you're training for specifically?
Yeah, I just kind of picked something for 2025. I'm gonna do, there's a mountain bike series called the NUE series, and they do like races all over the Southeast, but there's one in Tennessee.
Cool.
And it's called Cohutta. It's a 100-mile mountain bike event, and I actually decided, which I've done that before, not Cohutta, but I was like, I'm gonna do that on a single speed. So that's the target for this year, is to just do that with one gear and see what happens.
So you don't even need that trainer because you won't be
I'm gonna have to,
really.
I'm gonna have to ride outside a lot actually, I think.
Now why that? Like why is that the challenge and the thing that you want to do?
Well, I thought about it and I was like, Cohutta has like,
because you've done that before.
I haven't done Cohutta.
Oh, okay.
But I have done a couple 100-mile rides and stuff like that. And then I've done, on a mountain bike, some 100K events, but never a 100-miler. So it was already like hard enough, I think, and probably fine. But then I thought like, well, it has like 12,000 feet of climbing for the whole event. I was like, might make this a little harder and just do it with one gear.
So how does that work with that much climbing? Do you just have to know, okay, if it's steep enough, I'm just going to have to get off the bike?
There's probably sections you'll have to walk. But generally, I'm sure there would be. Cohota's cool because like, I think like 60 miles of it is kind of Forest Service road. So it's a little more, it's long ups, but they're a little more gradual. And so I think I could climb them all. Find out, I guess. But yeah, you just stand up and mash and see what happens. Yeah.
I did part of the Lifetime series, the one outside of Austin. It's called the Rattler.
Yeah.
And there was one guy on a single speed, and I'm not a great bike rider, but because I had gears, I would pass him on the hills, and then he would come back on like the flats. But every hill he had to get off, and he wanted to make sure everyone around knew, like, hey, on a single speed. It's
kind of a weird thing because like there's a running joke where it's like, how do you know if someone's on a single speed? You don't have to worry about it. They're gonna tell you. They'll make sure you know.
And I was so green to it, I was even a little confused, and so it was actually helpful to be like, oh, now I get it, because it was like he wouldn't even try. As soon as there was some, incline, he would just get off and start upping it.
Yeah, and at Shenandoah last year, I just did it on my normal mountain bike, but I had a few different mechanical situations, and you got to fix those like on the fly. And one of them I couldn't fix. I had to get to an aid station where they have mechanics there, and got it fixed. I was able to finish, but
and that was okay.
It was good, but
it was a sanctioned aid station, or whatever. Yeah.
But for all that, like in an event like that, if you just have that one gear, you're like, nothing can go wrong, really.
You've simplified the calamity.
I guess you can get a flat tire, but like, if your brakes are good, you're gonna be good.
So your single speed, will it be? I'm sorry, I don't even know this. Will there be suspension? Is that?
It has front suspension. Yeah, but not in the rear.
Yeah.
So.
Is it a Canyon as well?
It's not. No, it is. I tried a build with my friend Logan on Trek makes a bike called a Pro Caliber, and it has like a pivot thing in the back that just moves a handful of millimeters, and we had to use a chain tensioner to get the single speed set up on it, but that little bit of millimeter movement would like make it not work. It was like popping. And so I found a frame that has a dropout that allows you to create the tension you need, and so it slides back. So it's a giant.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you get into this?
Man, I think in college or after college, I think I was in grad school, so like sports weren't a thing anymore, and I was just looking for something to do. I think I was like starting to gain a little weight because I wasn't playing sports, and I was like, I had a couple friends in grad school who all started kind of mountain biking at the same time.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, cool, I'll try this.
Did you ride bikes a bunch growing up? Was that something that was
No,
kind of
what's really funny is with my brothers, I was the last one to learn how to ride a bike. I didn't learn how to ride a bike till I was like 8 or 9. And so, but it I don't know, I just started to really enjoy it, and kind of stuck with it. That was, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So you've been pretty consistent riding since?
Yeah,
since
well,
school?
when we lived in Tyler, I stopped.
That's great.
Oh, really?
Yeah. See, I thought you were going to say because of Tyler State Park. It was like, man,
Tyler
that's
State
when
Park,
I really
I didn't go out there until maybe the last 6 months or a year before we moved. And so I went to Faulkner Park a lot in Tyler. It's flat and sandy. And so I was not having fun on my bike. And I had a friend who was like into road riding, and he said, you should try this. And dude, those Texas road riders are animals. So I was like, I'll stick to CrossFit for now.
Riding bikes is stupid.
It's dumb. But when we moved back to Tennessee, I started to get right back into it.
I can see how, like, just the topography of Tennessee would make it, I don't know, like, Texas is great, but there's something about, like, the Smoky Mountains and, like, the temperature where it's like, man, riding bikes is just a great fit.
I know.
I see some of the stuff you post, it's like, God, it just looks so romantic to be out there.
Yeah,
and
it's beautiful.
the forest.
I love it. Yeah.
Go one more minute?
Yeah, it'd be great. Man, it's beautiful in here.
Thank you. What an honor to have you here.
You remember, like, not that this is, an affiliated gym or anything anymore, but like the early days of a gym like this, it was almost like the worse it could look, the better, That's how ours was in Tyler. It was like the worse it could be.
What do you mean?
It was just like,
say more.
It was just dirty. It was on the backside of another gym.
Huh.
So it was probably about this size, but there were roaches and kettlebells were rusty. But a lot of the members, like, it's like a badge of honor, how dingy the gym was.
I do know what you mean. The first spot we were at, no AC, like tin roof.
Yeah.
And I think that it definitely, like, added to the allure, especially because, like, no one knew what that kind of stuff was at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, we went a way different route at our Memphis gym.
Like, trying to make it actually nice. And
it was nice. Like, it was the one, so we actually had 3 locations, and there's 2 now, but we intentionally, like, one of them was built to be a gym. So it was, like, designed to be what it was. So.
Like, from the foundation, it was like, hey, we're making a gym.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty.
Great office.
That's pretty unique.
Great bathrooms.
Right, because even this place was just it's just a warehouse, just a thrift store.
Yeah.
And I think most places like this, you have to try to reappropriate. It's like, we could maybe make it like this. So that's cool.
Yeah. So that one was great. But yeah, I don't remember which one of these is mine. I think I put it in here.
Yeah, you're good. Val, do I need to, like, introduce this guy?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
I'm here with Dakota Zook from Johnson City, Tennessee.
Yeah.
He's in town visiting some family. We've been able to, I feel like it's like a modern day version of pen pals.
We were, yeah.
Is what you and I have been.
Yeah.
And we have a lot in common. You have a background in psychology. Your kids are homeschooled.
Homeschooled.
My kids are in kind of a hybrid homeschool program. You like to exercise. I like to exercise. What I'm hoping that we'll get into is talking about the way that you're coaching people, which is blending and hybridizing a lot of the background you have in, is it addiction specifically?
Yeah, so the work that I started in was addiction recovery. And yeah, that was a tough field to be in. It wasn't that long. It didn't take me long.
Like, this is not where I want to live
Yeah,
permanently.
this is kind of heavy. Sorry. Yeah, it felt that way.
Yeah.
It felt really heavy. But also loving all of that world of, like, change is really difficult. And especially when you add a factor like addiction into the equation. And I was just like, but I really wanted to be coaching. And so I started just kind of doing the coaching thing. And then along the way, I was like, man, I think there's more here and more available for what people are looking for. I started to see, you know, with the background that I had, I started to see really clear spots of like, this is a thing, this is, you know, and you just start to pay attention to some of that, and I'm like, I think I might be able to use a lot of what I've already learned and done in this setting too, but felt not super sure how to go about that in the best way. Mm-hmm. And I had tried a few different things, and most of the time it was like under the radar and not super intentional. Mm-hmm. And then
just kind of a one-off.
Yeah.
Of I'll try this, see if it lands.
Yeah. And sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. So, and that's been like 5+ years of practicing those things and seeing what works, trying to develop more stuff, getting coaching even in that with people who are doing it as well, like you guys. That's how I found you somewhere, and then I just sent you a message. I was just like, what's up? What's going on? That was a couple years ago.
So cool.
And here we are.
That's the only good part of social media.
Yeah, that is the good part. Every now and then,
one of the good parts.
you can find somebody and get some help. Yeah.
Well, let's keep talking, but I thought we'd just do a full body session.
Let's do it.
I like these kind of training types as almost like a fill in the gap for whatever else we got going on. So the format we'll do is a couple exercises we'll go back and forth. From a template standpoint, I love to partner some type of upper body pull with some type of lower body squat. And then I figure for B1, B2, B3, we can get a hinge in there, maybe another pull, but maybe a horizontal one versus vertical. And then and maybe sneak a press in there, so we could have like a press, some type of core pull combo, and then maybe like a hinge pattern. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great, yeah.
Cool.
I'm for it.
So I'm gonna try to go a little slower, and I can do a set and then just kind of go back with you.
Yeah.
How did you decide to do that though with your masters? Like why addiction? Like was that an option? Was it just like, hey, the program I'm doing,
No,
like that's
it's actually, I'm happy to talk about that. I got a job at the college I was going to, and one of the cool things about that was we ended up having, or they had this thing where like if you worked there full time, you and your spouse and your kids, if you had kids old enough to do it, went to school for free.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I can get a master's, and I was trying to figure out what that was in. And initially, when I had started this job, I was doing that for business, and you got to do math and stuff for that. So I was like, not that interested. It wasn't connecting. But then personally, there was a lot of stuff going on in my own life with addiction that I was just secretly carrying and holding.
Yeah.
And so like I was walking through that season of life like fully addicted to porn, and I was doing that thing and my wife had no idea. And I just remember, I don't know what happened, but one day, like, I don't remember why, but I was just like, she came out of the bathroom in our bedroom. We'd been married for like 6 months, and it was at like 10 o'clock at night, and I was just like, I gotta talk to you.
Yeah.
And I just told her everything, which sucked. It did, it sucked bad. But from that, I started going to counseling right after that.
And this was before you got into grad school?
I was in grad school, but I was in grad school for business.
Gotcha.
And so I started going to counseling, and then in about 6 months from that, I switched because it had such a huge effect on my own life. And so I switched to applied psychology, and then I focused with addiction and recovery. And Yeah, so
Man.
it was great.
I did not know those details, and I'm so thankful you shared them.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
You know, marriage is this really interesting thing, or I don't know about you, but like I can remember being single or even being engaged, where I thought, man, if I could just get married,
I know. Yeah.
it'd be easy street.
Yeah. It's gonna be great. And then you bring all your mess into that situation.
Well, and I mean, as much as, you know, you are on the same page with your wife, and I'm sure that you guys share so many things in common, I found that the longer I've been married, the more I realize how distinctly unique and different we are. And then just even the difference of a female in general, and this is a very general statement, doesn't, specifically with pornography, I had to really explain that and break it down about like just the exposure and the...
Yeah, I mean, you think about, you know, I don't know about you, I was probably 10, 11 when I was exposed to that the first time. So, but it's not only, I mean, there's like, you got this like internal piece of that most men will deal with, most adolescent guys will deal with growing up. But it's like so you have that, but you have all the external exposure too.
Yeah.
And so it's weird because, you know, you would never say to someone who's been dealing with something like that, exposed to something like that. So let's say from 12, I was 24 when that happened. So for 12 years, like you'd never just be like, just stop.
Right.
Just don't do it.
Right.
Like it makes no sense to approach something like that, you know?
But that's very typically like the
It's
approach.
like, this is such an easy thing for you to not do,
Just
isn't
don't
it?
do it.
Yeah, and it's like, no, not at all. That's not how addiction stuff works. And, you know, thankfully, a number of years ago, it was added to like the American Psychology's like category of addictions to be like an official one, you know. But yeah, it's hard to understand that if you've never struggled with it, you know. I've never done a rotational.
So it's basically like if you were doing a Samson stretch.
Yeah.
That elbow is just going to aim for the leg that's in front. Yeah.
It's nice. Taking notes.
Like kind of a strength, but then strength exercise, but a little bit of a stretch at the same time. Let us note for the camera, Dakota seems to be having a much easier time with that, probably due to the size of his quadriceps.
Oh, this is great. I've always just done these like normal split squat, which is the worst movement still.
Like one of the few movements where it's like you never feel good about it.
Ever.
I'm
You don't
never
get better
done
at
split
it. You don't, like, it's one of the worst things to give to a client because they're gonna be so mad, they're gonna be so sore. They're not gonna get better, you know? It's like, why does this always feel this way? It's like it always will. It's the nature of that movement. Yeah.
Well, man, all that stuff you said is, I think, really interesting, and back to just like grad school in general. I remember when I was in grad school, they painted this picture that's like, hey, there's this group of guys that are really messed up.
Yeah.
And so we got this big manual for them.
Yeah.
And then there's like the rest of us that are normal. And it sounds like that your experience, especially now coaching and incorporating a lot of these tools, is like, hey, there's one continuum.
Yeah.
And potentially we're all on that same continuum. Is that kind of how you believe now?
I think so. I mean, like, look, everybody you know and I know are carrying way more than they realize.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like our problems that and I feel like I've said this a lot, but like, man, especially when I was doing a lot of one-on-one counseling around that issue with pornography, it was just like, but it's true for any area where it's like, you know, you don't have whoever, this person, like you don't have a porn problem. You've got a porn solution to a way different problem. But you can pull that same concept out to like, for a client who cares way too much about what happens in this room. And you're like, you don't have a fitness problem, right? You have a solution here to something else that's going on. And figuring out ways to like do that, and that's appropriate because of the setting, right? So it's not a willing, like going to sit into therapy with somebody that I want to place myself with is a tricky thing.
Yeah.
But I think being able to lead with but that's the side where it's like, that's where you could just use the language of change. And it's applied, or the idea of change, wherever you want to apply it, right? So like, change is about identity and how you see yourself, how you think of yourself, how you talk to yourself. But that's the realm you're in when you look at change. And we all, like, especially for people who are going to be in our gyms or that we coach, it's just behavior. Like, it's just, I got to adopt these new behaviors.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're in that world, you're entering in the realm of identity. And how you see yourself and how you believe, what you believe about yourself. And so we beeline to behavior. And we have this great opportunity with coaches or wherever you are, when you're talking about change, to go like, what do you believe about this right now that's broken, that will be better? You can follow that path of their thinking in positive ways and negative ways. And it can help really shape what the appropriate behavior prescription could be, or guidance could be from a coach at that point. But you can't get to that, or you're never going to get away from, like, we're in the realm of identity. And when you're in the territory of identity, you're talking about story at that point, and what's happened to you, what you've done, what you've experienced. And
so how do you broach that topic? Because this is a question I get a lot. It's like, hey, when can we get into that?
Yeah.
So you got, most of your guys are remote, right? So you're doing it over Zoom, you're doing it over call. Now I know from your website, like, it's very clear that that's what you guys are going to get into. So it's not that it's this, magic trick where they're blindsided by, it's like, hey, tell me that story when you were 10.
Yeah.
But how do you, with something that, I think that's why fitness is the way that it is, because it is so accessible.
Yeah.
Hey, we're just going to come in, we're going to do push-ups, we're going to get a workout in, good music, coach is doing his thing. See ya. But what you just said, I think, is absolutely necessary, but it's a hard topic to get into if someone's, because people will say, I'm ready for change.
Yeah.
But we don't know if they're really ready for that type of change.
Yeah, I say it. I've done that, right? It's an interesting thing, and I've learned a lot from you in that, where, like, I think a good example, I have a client, and in his prescription that we were, like, writing, he just kept, every week, he would say, can we do more chest exercises? You know what I'm talking about. It's got to be thick. And I
like we're doing, I'm just wondering, could we do some more chest?
Yeah, hey, those squats were cool. Is there any way we could add some bench in there too that day? And I just was kind of tracking it though. So for like 3 or so weeks, and on our call, I was just like, hey, can you help me understand? I've noticed this. What's up with that? Like, what are you looking for there? Is there, when we talked about your initial, programming design that we were going to do, like we're doing those things. Does that not feel like enough? We're just leading into that. And he just was like, Newt, I just want to have, I don't think my chest is lagging. So, well, be more specific, and so I think there's this avenue of like, well, for me, I just say like, ask powerful questions and listen, with an ear that's kind of tuned towards like belief and not just like, because I think most coaches I know would hear that and go like, okay, cool, we'll give you an extra check, and I'm just like, I hear that and I'm like, there's something up. He's thinking something, and so like you listen with an ear that's tuned towards belief, and then I would say like you want to respond with news, not advice, right? So like,
oh, that's really good.
So like, the news side of that is like, can I tell you something that's like, I think's true for you like right now, versus well, as somebody with certifications around exercise science, here's so you can respond that way, or you can respond with like, I'll give you some really good news about this. Which is you don't have to carry that right now. But even with him, a great example we got to was he shared. I'm just going to go up and wait because you did, I guess. You made that comment earlier. I'll have to. But sorry. Other way. There we go. So we talked for a while, and turns out like he's like, I want to look good with my shirt off. And I was like, okay, cool. That's a way different thing already. And we also landed, he told me the story about when he was in 8th grade at a pool party. Someone told him, another guy, like a 10th grader, jerk, it's 10th graders.
Jerk, 10th graders.
Told him he had man boobs. And this dude's like 32. So what are you, like 12, 13, 8th grade? So for 16 years, has this story in his head about what his chest looks like. And he's in great shape, super strong guy.
Like you'd never look at his chest and say,
I've never been like,
hey man,
bro, you gotta
more
work.
flies.
Yeah, and so it's just wild, but like he's holding on to that story.
Yeah.
And so he's got an identity around that he's carrying.
So how did you get into that? Like, how did you even get that story out of him?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think more, like, I think if coaches are gonna, like, for me especially, doing this, is you have to listen to what's not being said. And there's a lot that he said. And if you practice that skill, you can pay really good attention to what you're hearing starts to be the things that aren't being said, right? And so it's like, this is obviously a big deal. And again, I don't think it's that big of a stretch for any normal coach to go, this is really important to him.
Yeah.
And then just get curious as to like, why is this so important to him? And so I asked him that question. We've talked about this before. It was just like, all right, well, so if I could snap my fingers right now and solve that problem, like you could show me on Google Images what chest you want. I can snap and you'll have it. What would that mean for you? And a question like that, which I call, that's a powerful question, to like get into, well, that would mean that I'm confident.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
We're in a whole different realm of like, now I want more chest exercises,
Right.
than I want to be confident. Cool. That doesn't have anything to do
Yeah.
with what your chest is or isn't. But hearing something like that, you're able to then engage with, where's that from? Let's talk through that. What happened? Where are you carrying? What are you holding that's making you feel more of this rather than... And he told me that story. And he said, like, man, yeah, I think about this once a week.
Yeah. God, isn't
Like,
that something?
Yeah,
Holy
once a week.
smokes.
And I have stories like that,
For sure.
Worst moments, most embarrassing things, and I'm like, oh man, if I can only fix that. And you can't, but you can fix what you think about it and what you believe about it. You can change those things and how you see that situation.
Yeah.
And I mean, we did that.
Uh-huh.
Did that, and
Yeah.
I had some stuff you helped me, like I was just holding on to, like, man, I was having a hard time giving myself credit for anything. We tried to do a little exercise and I couldn't do it. Like, tell me 10 things you're proud of. I'm like, dude, I can't. Like, I feel stuck. I've got like writer's block. I can't give you. And yeah, that's a hard thing, but that's nothing that like fitness is going to solve, And I hope that coaching can move more into this area. So, yeah.
I think you said something that I also agree with, that we've been so operational as coaches. We're so quick. Someone's like, man, I think I need a little bit more cardio. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Just program 3 days for you.
Yeah.
Versus like, you're like too close to the ask
Yeah.
to know what it is that they're really asking.
Yeah.
So I think like a deeper level of listening is almost like, I don't know if detached is the word, but to not be so bought into being helpful operationally that you can't hear the things that they're really saying. Like, well, we had a call yesterday on our little cohort, and we got asked the questions like, how do you know when it's appropriate to go into any type of story? And my answer was, well, if you're really listening, something won't add up.
Yeah.
Just like you said, like, you need more chest work?
Yeah.
Okay, that didn't really add up. Hey, you can't come up with 2 things that you're proud of yourself. Okay, that didn't really add up. And I think that if you're like dealt with your own baggage, so I think most of us show up feeling really insecure that we're not going to help.
Yeah.
And so we jump in and be like, man, anything you ask, I'll do it. Versus be like, man, it's not even about me.
Yeah.
Your story, like, of course we can do like more flies, but your story, it's not even about me, but I'm necessary because I don't have the same software about this story that you do.
Yeah.
So when you say it, I'm going to see from such a different perspective how the context is no longer appropriate. And I think that context is everything.
Yeah.
It's like braids in the Bahamas is really cool, but it's not as cool when you come back to Dallas, right? Like
Right.
the context is everything.
Still
Like-
a little cool.
It makes a lot of sense if you're in 8th grade to be really self-conscious about how
Yeah.
your chest looks. But 20 years later, that's a very antiquated software that you're still running.
Yeah.
But here's, I think, what it means to be a human being. Nobody's going to tell you that that's out of context,
Right.
right? Those stories like live perpetually in our head, and there's nothing like, I think there's biological iterations that our body just organically goes through, and we don't have to instigate some type of change. But this stuff that we're talking about, there's nothing that's going to update that software for you.
No.
It's tricky.
It is. Yeah, and then you add in, like we were talking earlier, you add in a spouse,
Yeah.
kids to that story.
The complexity of it, and just the social construction that's a part of those stories. And then, you know, it's like, hey, do I double down on that thing I've been believing, or is there something outside of me that's gonna require me to like really update that thing that I've been telling myself about myself?
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to that question though, like as far as when you get into identity, it's just going to naturally come up.
Yeah, I think that's like what you named on the cohort call that you had earlier or yesterday. Like something doesn't add up, or you're listening to. I do think that like listening as much to what's being said as to what's not being said is a skill, and it's a challenge, and it's its own thing. But when you hear more of that, then you know like when it's time to start to engage in those things. But like I just onboarded a new client, and you know, like that first call, just like tell me about what you got, what's in your sphere of life, like why are you interested in all of this? And you know, I might make some notes, something I hear, but like that's not a time to be like, on this quick call, let's jump into
Tell me about the generational sin of your father.
yeah. Let's talk about that real quickly. And yeah, so there's context of the relationship needs to grow, and there does have to be a level of like trust that's there in your ability to guide. And you can only show that, you know, and so like that takes some time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that I've thought about this a lot more. I mean, even since the very first cohort was like, I think I need 6 solid months with somebody before we can really dive in on some of these things. And yeah, and so I think that you need time. You have to demonstrate that you actually care, and you're a trustworthy person in their corner, you're on their team.
Yeah.
And to trust that process. And to use fitness as a really great place to explore some of those things. You know, like physical challenges are amazing for that. And so, yeah.
Hey!
Yo!
Maybe. What's up, dude? Look who we got here.
Zook.
Old Zook.
I got a meeting with Warren, but I'll
Okay, we'll see you on the other side. I've thought, man, I've been thinking, you said something earlier about, you know, exercise is so good and it's so worthy and there's so many great things that can come from it, but are we too often using it as a Band-Aid for what else is going on? And that's tricky, and I'm just talking about myself personally. I was thinking just yesterday that, man, I'm just flat out a better person if I can do something like this each day. So is that a Band-Aid? Is it not a Band-Aid? I don't know. I think you can overdo it.
Yeah.
For example, in that silly instance, I wonder if I could more directly address the emotion that I'm processing. Would I not have to blaze past it with something that's so challenging that it like clears my brain, you know? And I think a lot of us that got into fitness, it's like, man, how often you hear like, fitness is my medication. Like, well, you know, in a way that's cool, but also
Fitness is my therapy, dude.
yeah, also are you really addressing like the things that got you there in the first place?
Yeah. And I think, like for the crowd who's like, this is my therapy. I'm like, the best way to use fitness as therapy is to not. Is to let it be its own thing.
Yeah.
And
like I'm doing this because I enjoy it, not because I have to.
Yeah. Like getting to the spot where like, we both know, we've talked and we both shared a lot of resources about the impacts of, like doing physical things and the impacts that has on your psychology and your mode of thinking, your mode of being. Like that can just be what it is and a really good thing.
Yeah,
like,
really well said.
And it doesn't always have to be, I've had a similar conversation with a coach that I'm coaching on some of this stuff where it's like it's almost like in his head, he's like, I got to figure out what every single person's carrying and how I can cross that bridge with exercise. I mean, that's not necessarily it. Like this will always be supportive and it will always help my mode of thinking. I think for anybody like positively impacting daily life. That's a big net positive, no matter who we're talking about or what they're dealing with. What they're dealing with can make this, like you were just saying, like way too much. Or, I remember one of our first conversations, like we laughed about this, like coaching at 6 a.m. on like a Wednesday morning, and I got like a 40-year-old pilot for FedEx who's like hammering an assault bike, and he's like, "Don't be a bitch." And it's like, dude, it's a Wednesday morning. It's 6 a.m.
Yeah.
That's not.
You got the whole rest of your day ahead of you, man.
So like, I think that what you have going on can certainly impact how you do this, but it's not always just like, and I think that's an interesting thing going with where you and I are engaging a lot with coaching, and it's like there doesn't always have to be this perfect, correlation between these two things, but being willing to engage on those other things and able is a huge piece. I think most coaches that I know would probably be willing to like walk with a client through what they're carrying and holding on to, but like I feel like there's a skill set there too that we need some guidance and growth in. But so being willing and able to meet people there should be a part of it.
From the coaching standpoint.
Yeah, from the coaching standpoint.
Yeah, we do talk a lot about ready, willing, and able from the client standpoint, but then from the coaching standpoint, I feel like, have you modeled that yourself?
Yeah.
Are you willing to surrender your ego to show up and be like, I actually don't have a framework for this. I don't have a progression like I did the push press. I'm showing up, I got a handful of good questions, and there's a possibility that I could crash and burn. Unlike in fitness, it's like, I know I'm gonna nail it.
Yeah, I'll crush this.
Yes.
You got this pace, this load this week, this many reps. Like the progressions are so simple, and it's not like that at all you need, but I think on the client side, it's like, man, who doesn't want another person who cares about them?
Totally.
And so there's almost, to me, like almost nothing but willingness on that side. And then there's a hesitancy on the coaching front.
Yeah.
Like, should I, can I?
Yeah.
Is this okay? I think there's a desire and a want, but.
We practiced this yesterday as a staff with we role played, and it was like, okay, I want you to come up with the most hostile, most resistant person that you can conjure up. And our goal was just to disarm them.
Yeah.
And disarming them was like just echoing what you heard them say. Simple reflections.
Yeah.
Simple reframe. And it's crazy, even to pretend to be the 6-year-old woman with menopause and nobody understands how she feels. It was effective. It was like, man, you really did.
Well, I'm laughing about that because this is a real person, the FedEx assault bike, and I remember just going that same thing. I went over and looked at his calorie time and I was like, no, that's a bitch score. Yeah. And just allowed him to go is that real? I think he saw immediately the ridiculousness of, Like you just did.
You amplified
Yeah.
what he was saying.
Yeah, and you can do it that way too, where you can just be like, sure, you know, like have at it, you know, and it usually can be. I mean, you have to do that with the right person.
Oh
You have
man,
to kind
it's
of
such
be
a this whole thing we're talking about is like such an alchemy. It's like such an art, you know. Whereas I think coaching is very like, you know, executive function, hit my marks, play my music, do my thing, and this is like, it's so much more like jazz.
Yeah, we're playing jazz. Yeah.
I'm gonna get some more gear and bring it over.
All right.
Thanks for letting me just kind of freestyle here.
Yeah. I had to grab a water, you know. I've never.
Yeah.
What are we doing? I walk in, you hand me 12 ounces of coffee, and then we go work out. This is a real like, do as we say, not as we do thing with coaching.
All right, let's do B1, B2, B3. Let's do a alternating dumbbell press, seated. How about times like 6 to 8 per arm? We got one of those adjustable benches. I'm pressed, but with it like really high like that.
Okay.
And then how about like just a single leg RDL with the kettlebell? Or do you want to do a landmine?
Oh, we can do this one.
Okay.
This is good, yeah.
How about like 8 to 10? And then we'll call this one the coffin.
Okay.
The coffin row. Times AMRAP. And let's just do 3 rounds. So, how about both dumbbells just alternating from the top?
Yeah.
6 to 8 per arm. Single leg RDL with the kettlebell. And then the coffin row, I thought we'd just be out like this, and we're just pulling with the kettlebells.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. 200s somewhere.
Yeah, they're hiding over there.
Where are they?
Okay. How's everything going? Good? Okay. I keep just trying to flip this up so it's not stuck.
The magnet next time is going to help a lot.
Okay, cool. Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Start here.
Yeah, kick us off. We'll just do the same kind of you go, I go thing.
Okay.
Nice. What are you learning parent-wise?
Oh,
So the oldest is 8.
oldest is 8.
Youngest is 3.
3. He will be 4 very soon.
Yeah.
A couple weeks he'll be 4. Man, my wife and I are having a lot of conversations about, like, she showed me this thing a while ago that I've thought almost nonstop about with our kids, which is about how, like, it's in this like journey of parenting, it's like letting your kid teach you who they are versus like trying to make them into something. And that it's like, I don't know, she sent it to me on something, maybe on social media, but like I read it and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, and it's a challenge when you have these 3 little humans who are awesome, and they're so different than you, and you are trying to, like, maybe for me, like, overcorrect a thing that you're like, but then you can, you know, like, oh, they're 8. You know, this is exactly what they should be like as an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
But allowing them to just tell you, like, or show you, this is who I am, and try to let that unfold.
It's tricky because there's bloomers of how they're similar to you. So I find it's very easy
To say, oh, well, they are me.
Yeah.
Or, well, I see you acting out in ways that I've also acted out. So let me give you my protocol
Yeah.
that's worked for me after, 42 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that, yeah. And yeah, not for an 8-year-old and or a 6-year-old, and definitely not for a 3-year-old
Yeah.
little boy. That's been a real different thing too. Like, you have 3 girls. We had 2, and I was like kind of hoping for a 3rd. I was like, this is the world I'm in.
We're in the pocket.
I'm in
Let's
girl
stay there.
world now. Like, let's just stay there. And then we had our son. It's like, it's real joyful, but he's so, like, it's so different. He loves lawnmowers and, like, he's so into
He's a
them.
lawnmower guy.
Lawnmower guy, weed eater guy, big trailer, guy. And, like, just allowing him to flourish in those things he really wants. And then we've got an 8-year-old who is one of the more creative people in the world, I think. And a 6-year-old who's just like the sweetest little kid and who's pretty athletic, and
The middle one.
yeah. And so trying to find ways to allow them to flourish. Our 8-year-old said something, wow, this leg, so different. This is why we do single leg, to learn about yourself. She is so creative, and she's type of where she'll, like, if she's being a character, she will go and make the costume, like, and it's pretty good.
She's in the world.
She'll
Like,
come
she's
back
immersing herself.
to the living room, fully dressed, great costume. So we were like, man, maybe there's some theater stuff.
Yeah.
And we found this one, and it's in like March. And Lauren told her about it, and she was just like, kind of like, hey, would you be interested in this? And Lucy said, Mom, that's my dream. So we're just like, great, we're there, like, she plays
That's all I've
soccer.
ever wanted.
She plays soccer because we kind of made her, I guess. We didn't really ask her, we just signed her up. And it's like the opposite with our middle daughter. Like, she doesn't want any eyes on her, but she loves playing soccer, and she's really good at it. And so
That's so funny. Yeah, we tried really. So it's funny, like everybody I talk to with kids, especially 3, family systems is super interesting. And then just even like, man, there's so many unique things about your family, but yet, man, I have an oldest that shares some similar firstborn characteristics, and the youngest is also like uniquely different than her other sisters. But I find that it's so easy to be like, oh, well, this is our athletic child.
Yeah.
Or, oh, this is our creative child. And, along with like family systems theory, it's like, well, they're all those things. Like, everyone is an athlete and creative and introverted and extroverted in like all of these ways.
yeah,
And like you said,
to allow them to show it to you versus like putting a label or running down some deep rabbit hole
that they're actually not ready to go into until they say it's all I've ever dreamed of.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's like, great, well, let's create an environment for you to do these things that you want to flourish in, and then we'll keep exploring the other ones.
Yeah.
And see how they show up, you know, and it's, I don't know, it's a challenge, it's a hard, parenting's hard. I was telling somebody recently, like, we talked earlier, you know, about even when you get married, but like, I don't think you can really understand yourself until you have kids.
No.
And I don't mean to like throw shade on people who don't have them, but
I'll
like,
throw it on them.
yeah, it's like, you know, well, yeah, like they wear their badge of honor all the time of like not having kids, like whatever, that's cool. But like, I don't think you can.
I don't think there's any other way
All right.
unless you're,
What's the setup for this?
you know what, I just made it up. So I think like keep the hip hinged
Spencer,
and just pull right to the chest.
talk about alchemy.
Yeah, it's magic. I wish that the pad would go a little bit further
You and me both.
so it could block.
This is the hardest thing I've ever done.
I'm glad you went first.
Made it look so easy.
My hamstring was screaming though as I was on there. We'll see. We may have to.
I'm about to leave.
We,
I'm out of here.
we may have to switch that up a little bit. God, I wish my legs were shorter.
I do have short legs, and it was still. This is the research portion of.
Yeah, not everything's a winner, guys. Oh man, I'll tell you what.
Did you make the name up on the spot too?
Yeah, I just thought it was like Dracula coming out of his coffin.
Yeah. I thought we were just gonna do like a reverse hyper or something, you
Yeah,
know, like
I feel like
just a bend.
yeah, I feel like I'm gonna switch this out with something a little less death-defying.
I might not.
Here, you do your second set. I'll bring PhD over. What's up, man? Good to see you. I think this will be much cooler.
You know, you don't have to use the
This is
50s
great.
if you don't want to, you know.
This is great.
I was just keeping the previous broken arm weight lower.
Yeah. I'm training for this trail marathon,
Yeah.
but I'm really over training for it. Like I've just basically stopped lifting weights. So just to doing anything just feels great right
Feels
now.
good. You know, it's been a weird journey on like, I talked to this cycling coach that I don't pay. Man, you know, if we think that like individualized program design is expensive, have you ever tried to hire a cycling coach?
Dude, I feel like
I don't know what those guys think they do, or those folks think they do. But man, I did have a helpful conversation, and he was like, you know, if you're serious about this, and he looked at all my numbers, it was a cool consultation. And he was like, you know, honestly, if you weighed 165 pounds, you'd probably be an animal. And he's like, so you should probably just drop 20 pounds.
Just
I
cut
was
one
like-
of your legs off.
I don't know, but it's hard to find the balance of like lifting and the volume you need to do something like a 100 miles, you know, mountain bike race
Yeah.
or a trail marathon. That's not, like something's got to give if you're doing something like that.
Totally. But most of the things I participate in, somebody will say that. Like, you know, just don't expect to be a very good surfer because you weigh 220. It's like, oh, thanks, man.
Thank you.
I can really do something with
Yeah.
that. So I think it does temper your expectations a little bit. It's like, okay, I'm actually not willing to compromise that much. I don't even care about this thing that much.
Yeah.
It may be different for you with.
No, because it's like, well, like,
biking.
you know, I remember like last year for the big event that I did, it was like, I trained really hard for that. And I got like 19th place, you know, and it was just like, I remember thinking like, I spent some time away from my family to do this. Just
That's
to get
hard. It's so time consuming.
just to get 19th place at this thing, you know, like, and it's like, I could have just done this, you know, like, where I live. Could have easily made a route that is just as challenging, and I don't have to go anywhere or pay money. I could just go do it. And then I could also lose all that like comparison to all these little fellas that I'm competing against, you know. And so
I think most of my motivation, because I'm a dad, and that is a big part to do with it, it's to tell a great story,
yeah,
do things I just like to do.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like to run, but man, I love to research. I love to get the gear. I love to go someplace cool like
Totally.
Moab. I love to be with my wife. So it's like, yeah, I'll train for 16 weeks in order to enjoy that. But the competition thing is really interesting, where it's like, I don't think that the people I'm trying to impress actually care very much about 19th place versus first place.
right,
And they're the only ones that I'm trying to impress.
yeah. My girls were at the race that I did the one I got 19th place in. And the first question my 5-year-old asked me was, "Did you have fun?"
Oh, it's amazing.
And my buddy who did it with me, he was like, "What was your time?" And I just remember thinking like, there's a huge and very important difference between those two questions. And in my head, I was like, was I trying to do this for my buddy, or to show my kids like it's fun and cool to do physical challenges?
Yeah,
you know?
and you want to model excellence, like all that stuff's super important. But once again, I think context is also essential.
Yeah,
It's like if you were 22, man, you would be asking a lot different questions, but
I
since
would.
you're not,
Yeah, I'm not.
it's so funny.
Yeah,
I think we talked about this, but I did that cross-country race in Bentonville, and my tire like exploded. There was nothing I could do. You know, it was like a sidewall tear. I tried all the tricks. You know, the rules are, hey, you can't get assistance. You got to figure this out on your own.
yeah,
But because it's in Bentonville, the trail goes on all these green belts that are literally like by the town, so it's not like you're outside of the city. So I called a buddy. He came and picked me up. I came back to where my family was watching, and I was just thinking that I was done. And anyways, long story short, I went to a tire shop. I had him fix it. I went back into the race. I finished it. I finished like last place. But all my kids talk about is how cool it was that I like got back in and like
Yeah.
kept going. And
Yeah.
I keep telling them like, hey, I didn't even get a medal. Like I'm not even officially on their website
Yeah.
of finishing. But it's just funny what they
what
seem
they
to care
decided
about.
was a cool part of that.
Yeah.
And it is cool. It's the coolest part. Like, to push through on something that you think is over, that you
Yeah.
spent time training for, is awesome.
And they had so many questions.
Because that was something that they had never like seen. It's like, well, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And I think that if it had just been like a ho-hum, middle of the pack finish like I was anticipating, there would have been no questions.
Yeah.
There would have been no lesson.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if this is any better, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna try it.
I figured just like parallel to the ground.
It might be better. Certainly will feel better on my hamstrings.
Yeah, we won't rupture.
Oh, yeah.
Night
Still
and day.
hard.
Still hard. You definitely look more sure of yourself, though. Like more certain. I feel like I was shaking like there was an earthquake going on.
There is. It's just, it's in my hamstrings. That's where the earthquake is. But definitely a more approachable version.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's much better.
This is great.
People are going to see a clip of me doing that first one and be like, this guy.
Still, that'll be the thumbnail. Still not easy.
Still not easy.
Hard to keep your chest from dropping.
Man, that's like everything we've talked about too, though. Parenting, husbandry, coaching. We've been doing each of those for years. Still not easy.
Still not easy.
You can change a variation of this movement. It's still not easy.
Still not easy. It's funny how I also keep telling myself, like, well, certainly it will become easy.
I know. We're really good at like telling ourselves falsehoods. And it's like all you get better at is, I firmly believe this. It's like you grow in reverse, right? It's like you only get better at learning what you're not good at. Like, but I think that's the path of growing, where you're like, I am deeply flawed.
Yeah.
And I think the growth of that is like learning how to recognize it faster. Like I can tell, this is an easy barometer for my life. If I'm driving and I'm getting like, what do you do? You know, like if I'm getting that, if that's happening routine, I have to know, I'm like, something's off in my life right now. Like that's an easy thing.
Such a litmus.
That's my litmus test of like, I'm stressed out. Because normally this wouldn't affect me like this. And it is right now. It really is. And I use that one. I'm like, yeah, I need to calm down and do some breathing or reflecting on something. What's bothering me?
On that note, I wonder how anger is a reroute from actually trying to figure out exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
Right? What is anger? Feeling like there's an injustice that you're having to endure.
Yeah.
When I think that's just so easy to conjure up how we're a victim of injustice. When it's like in reality, man, I'm just disappointed about this thing that happened like 3 days ago. Or
that
I'm really sad.
That I didn't even think through. Yeah.
But there's like something, help me figure this out. There's something more socially acceptable about getting angry. I don't even know if that's the right word, but like road rage. Pretty well accepted. We all think it's kind of dumb, but we all do it.
Yeah.
But some of these other emotions that I think are becoming more acceptable, there's not a fast track to it. It's like you do have to get angry and then be like, am I really angry? Am I really a victim of injustice?
Right. This person didn't use their signal, and for some reason I have allowed that to affect my mood right now. I don't like that, you know?
Same.
Because I'm like, well, what? Because in the same way, then I could have a 3-year-old at home who can't, you know, neurologically process what's going on, and he's upset that he can't get this battery thing to work on his lawnmower, and he's freaking out. And then I can carry that same level there.
Yeah.
And all will just cross over. And it's a weird thing, but it does have that, like, how many of our friends would say, like, well, that's cool if you yell at a 3-year-old? No, probably not many of them. but it is like in the other settings where it's like I can be angry at work.
Yeah.
I can be angry in my car, and it's like it just at work, right? It was going to show that I care a lot. And
Right. It's like, man, this is a really passionate guy. It's like, like maybe you just didn't really, like, it's just such an easy off ramp to being angry.
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't know what it is. I don't have a good answer. I think it is a weirdly acceptable thing. I don't like it for myself. I can tell, like if I see on my cycling training plan that it's supposed to just be base miles, easy riding, and for whatever reason I'm like pushing so hard and I'm like ignoring that, and I'm like, I think those are really good litmuses to follow through, where you're like, with fitness as an example, it's like, can your easy day be easy?
Yeah.
If it's not, and it can't, or you struggle with allowing something like that to happen, there's maybe some stuff that we can talk through. Or if I'm being more quickly road rage guy, bothered by this thing that has nothing to do with me, like those are all good things to go like, let's pay attention and see what's up. There's probably something here.
Yeah, what was the thing you needed this exercise to accomplish today? Because if you're training for something and it's a, zone 2, base type workout, and you feel like that's inadequate or not enough, like what was the thing that exercise was doing for you in the first place?
Yeah, I listened to this coach. He's a cycling coach, Graham. Right leg, man. What's the deal? This is my dominant side.
He had stitches in that leg, all right?
I did have
take it
stitches
easy
in
on
this
him.
leg. Might have been right on the landmine. I could have used the support. But he was saying, Graham Holicky, awesome guy. You should find him if you haven't heard of him.
I haven't.
Great coach, awesome info. Also is a psychology background guy who's coaching. But he was talking about how we can only coach how we've been coached before. Like we tend towards those things. And so if you've been empowered as a person or an athlete or a client, then you could probably, you can see that in the coaching. But if there's power gaps, and like, here's what I'm saying, you do this, hit this. Like he talks about that difference between being empowered or power gaps. And it was really good, like idea of
almost like a hierarchy.
Yeah, like you're gonna engage, and so it's really helpful to know what your tendencies are, and you learn those. And
I don't like the term, what is it, nonviolent communication.
Yeah.
I feel like there could be a lot, because that makes it feel like, you're like yelling at people, but it's basically what you're talking about, that you talk in a way that feels very authoritative, and it's probably like most of us were coached as kids.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead and give me 10 reps. Hey, go ahead and eat, protein for breakfast or whatever. Which you catch yourself doing as a parent a lot.
Yeah.
That's where I felt very convicted, is not even, because I feel like I've worked so hard from a coaching standpoint up here, but there's often times where, man, you do need to have the power gap.
Yeah.
You're about to hurt yourself. Like, I'm going to go ahead and save you stitches.
Yeah.
But I find so often that keeps coming up when it's not necessary. And I wonder, back to what you said, is that inhibiting them from showing us who they really are?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I've thought through that a lot with, it's been very popular for a number of years to, especially in the psychology world and therapy settings, to like think through and talk about what's happened to you with your parents and your family of origin stories. And I was with somebody, like just a therapist, who just kind of kept trying to pull stuff out about my mom and dad to like, just for me to think was negative. And like the older I get, and there were a number of years, and I feel awful about this, that I just carried probably unnecessary like frustration towards them for this perception. But then like now, having my own kids and being in my like late 30s, trying to provide for a family, and I remember thinking now, like, we were a single income family. My dad worked for the state. We lived in government housing. Like they were making like $800 a month. They had 4 sons. Like they actually did awesome. You know, like he didn't miss football practices or basketball practices, like, or games. Like we always got stuff, and it was just kind of like you could stop to reflect back on how hard what I'm doing is as a dad and a husband, and then you can look back at your parents and you can go like, oh, actually, like, they were awesome. And that can help reshape, because like I've thought so often, like, I can't do this thing for my kids, I can't do it this way because I don't, and it's like, man, I need to let some of that go and just be here, you know.
When you take your parent from being the villain of your story to the hero of their story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like, man, it's awesome to hear. My dad's dad left when he was like 3.
Yeah, like how much better did your dad do than his dad?
Oh, man.
Right?
He stayed. Like every reason in the world to peace out. He's got 4 kids, no money.
Yeah.
He's like 23 years old.
Yeah.
Like, how many times has that story ended with that guy just dipping?
Easiest thing in the world he could have done.
Easiest thing for him to do would be to leave. And he did the way harder thing. And
Not perfectly.
Not perfectly.
But gosh darn it.
Way harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good to hear it that way. Like, yeah, that's exactly what both of them did, you know,
and I think it takes being a parent yourself to like see it from a fresh set of eyes. I was like, oh man, I get it now.
Yeah.
I just couldn't understand until I was in some similar position as you.
Come on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That was just,
Just get 8 of these, right? You know?
Yeah, I think anything better than 0 is, I mean, 2 seconds of tension in that position, I feel like our muscles are probably going to grow.
Man.
That's good. Done.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the coolest things I've heard all month.
Well, so, you know, back to that call yesterday, it was the homework where everybody had to write a story down, and they did it independently, but when they came back, like, everybody basically had a story from childhood.
Yeah.
And without any prompting from me, it was like they saw their parent in a different light.
Yeah.
And that came up, and I was like, man, that's a pretty cool cognitive shift. To go from, and I wonder if that's just a rite of passage, like our kids are gonna think the same thing about us.
Until you're,
Yeah, like hormonally, it's a necessary rite of passage to think your parents are dumb, so you'll actually leave and live your own story.
Yeah, you've got to do it. You got to think like these folks were wrong about everything.
Yeah, otherwise you'd never leave.
Yeah.
You'd be like, well, this is the greatest.
Yeah, if they're just perfect and right, it's like easy, awesome. I'll stay here. Yeah. I think we're onto something with that.
Yeah.
When is your event?
It's November the 2nd.
It's coming up.
I got all the gear, the vest. Shoot, I mean, that's 90%.
Yeah.
Just looking the part. Like this guy
It looks
clearly
like
has been here before.
he knows what he's doing.
Bandana, of course.
Naturally. Dude, I've gotten made fun of so much for wearing the bandana. You know,
people make fun of what they don't understand.
They don't understand it. They don't I don't expect you to understand. I'm a pirate.
Yeah.
I'm a French pilot. And
the life of a buccaneer is not for everybody.
it's not for everybody. the Frenchness to it, and it's certainly not, but.
Well, for what it's worth, I liked it. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Zook. How are we doing on time?
We're good. I looked at my Whoop like it showed me, but it doesn't.
Last thing, if you had any advice for a coach that hears the stuff we're talking about, it's like, man, I don't even know where to begin. What would you tell him? What would you tell yourself
Oh man.
a few years back?
I said this sentence a week or so ago to a coach a newer coach that I'm coaching, and I've thought like, man, I should just put this on my website. But it's like help one person solve one problem, and we get into the ideas of like, I've got to be, we can fantasize it like I'm going to be this kind of coach. We're not all going to have spaces like this, and don't all have to, or like as many remote clients as I get to work with. Like it's not always going to be that way, but to start, you got to be with people. That's like
Unavoidable.
Like you've got to get in there with people. I would even like ditch the idea that you have to have perfect like exercise science knowledge. Get really good at helping people solve problems, and you can do that in fitness with physical challenges, and man, you'll be good. But help one person solve one problem, and you'll be on a path. I think just do that over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Dude, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your insights and your wisdom. That's it.
Subscribe!